Welcome, scholars, to lesson 2-1.12, an Ottoman beatdown. Today we're going to be looking at the rise of the military power of the Ottoman Empire, and it was quite powerful. We're going to be taking it all the way back to the beginning and carrying it up through the height of the Ottoman Empire. So hang on tight. It's going to be a ride. Beginning with the beginning. The Turks had been one of a number of nomadic groups living in Central Asia and living this nomadic lifestyle, which was like the Mongols that we've already studied. The Turks had lived most of their life on horseback. This means that they were really expert horsemen. Really, in most cases, by about age 5, the Turks were on horseback regularly. And living a life this way and living this nomadic hunting lifestyle meant that they were really experts at using bow and arrow as a weapon for hunting. They were experts at tracking prey over long distances. So they had these military skills and they had this endurance that would serve them really well in warfare. Now, as the Turks move into the Islamic lands after the Islamic Empire had expanded and the Turks had converted to Islam, and then the Seljuks came in and started, eating up large sections of the Islamic Empire. They're going to be adapting steppe warfare tactics to facing larger and larger armies. And really the specialties of these steppe warfare tactics are the false retreats. That is, you would run away from your enemy, but just stay just barely outside of range of their weapons, and you run them around until they're tired. You swap onto fresh horses, and you turn around and you attack them. The Turks would also set ambushes. That is, quietly wait until your opponent is out of position, and then strike. And also, they were really good at moving very large armies very quickly, because the Turkish warriors did not wear a lot of armor and could move. They would have, as many as 4 or 5 horses per warrior, which meant that they could move very quickly. The Turks did not initially use much infantry. They didn't use much foot soldiers early on. So everybody was on horseback and very mobile. Now, they would use these strategies to avoid major confrontational battles, major one-on-one set-piece battles, until they were really sure that they were in a position where they could win those. So they would strike at their enemies quickly, run away, set ambushes, false retreats, do all these things to weaken an enemy down to the point where the Turks felt that they could then throw their full weight at them and win that battle. Now, with the addition of gunpowder, we're going to see the Turks kind of modify their warfare a little bit. Quick history on the use of gunpowder in warfare. It was invented in China and first used by the Chinese. It was famously used by the Chinese against the Mongols, but the Chinese use of gunpowder in war was not nearly as effective as the Mongols would make it. The Chinese had some rudimentary flamethrowers. They could fire small stone balls a short distance, but the use of gunpowder in war was not as devastating as the Mongols, and then especially the Islamic empires would make it later. The Mongols are going to take it first. They're going to adapt it. We start to see the use of what we would definitely recognize as cannon by the Mongols. We go from these kind of, tubes at the end of bamboo firing small balls into more of what we'd expect to see as a cannon used by the Mongols. Now, the Muslims are not going to acquire the use of gunpowder until the Mongols have gotten it from China and brought it west with their conquests. So the Muslims are first exposed to gunpowder in the 1230s, maybe late 1220s, and then they discover how to use it themselves and use it effectively around 1240 AD. Cannons are going to evolve in a similar way, first with the Chinese and throughout these other civilizations as well. Both the Chinese and Mongols had used cannons. We saw some of those in the previous slide. Islamic empires are really going to perfect their use, or maybe not perfect. There's still some other things that make modern cannon, modern artillery better than these ancient Middle Age cannons, but some of these cannons are going to be really good, and they're going to be used up into the 1800s. Now, the Islamic Kingdom and Islamic Kingdom in India is going to be the first to use something that we would compare with a handgun, which they actually called a hand cannon, a handheld, smaller version of a cannon. These are comparable to these handguns, but not all that effective. Distances were very short. Somebody with a bow and arrow would be certainly able to use their weapon more quickly than somebody with a hand cannon, and in most cases more effectively. But it does mark a turning point in the evolution of gunpowder weapons. The Ottomans are going to take these cannons and guns right into a new level, and they're going to start to really perfect their use. One battle where we see tremendous use of cannon is during the Siege of Constantinople. The Ottoman Turks brought to this battle the largest, most sophisticated gunpowder weapons the world had ever seen. We see these great Turkish bombards, of which they had 68 of them. And you can see an image of them here. These are huge cannon. You can see in the background here the men who would be using this cannon. They fire tremendous shots. They could fire a 25-inch stone ball, so a stone ball more than 2 feet across. And they could fire that over a mile. These cannons were so well constructed that they were still using Turkish bombards to defend Constantinople up until the early 1800s. 350 years later, the cannons made to take Constantinople were being used to defend Constantinople. Now, with the Turkish Ottoman Empire established, the fall of Constantinople, the centralization of all of that power, we start to see the Ottomans really look to expand and to expand rapidly. And one of the first places they go is toward Europe, and they go and they invade the nation of Hungary. And it's going to be with their cannons that the Turks are really able to very quickly overwhelm almost all their opponents within Hungary. There was, in fact, only one area within Hungary where they faced a significant setback. This was when they tried to take an area of Hungary named Wallachia, where an individual by the name of Prince Vlad Dracula. That's right, this is Dracula, as in the vampire Dracula, is actually a historical figure. Count Vlad Dracula of Wallachia is going to capture and impale 23,000 Turks. Now, he does not actually drink their blood and feast upon their flesh, as is in legend, but this is still a pretty gruesome thing to have done, to take all these Turkish bodies and, decorate them on poles around his land. It gets him quite a sinister reputation as being a particularly vicious character, but we should also know that Wallachia was invaded a second time. Dracula is going to have to flee from this invasion. He flees to the king of Hungary, who then has him killed for being a traitor. So, Dracula died. Even though he is this historical figure, I do not think he ever became undead, and I'm pretty sure he's not around feasting on the bodies of people who are his victims. So, sorry, Dracula, you're just this one minor historical figure. No screams. Moving on. Sorry about that little slip. All right, southeastern expansion. Expansion into Europe continued until the Ottoman Civil War, which erupted in 1509. This is really going to halt the attempted conquest of Italy. So here we have Hungary is right through here as the Ottoman Empire is expanding north of Greece. They're going to push along the coast and try to invade Italy. They actually get as far as Venice before they have to turn back because of this civil war. And for three and a half years, they are fighting the civil war until in 1512, a new sultan is put in charge, and he's going to be once again leading a united Ottoman Empire. And he's going to instead turn his focus toward the southeast. And by the end of his reign, the Ottoman Empire has gone from just controlling the Anatolian Peninsula and this area here with a little bit of the Black Sea. And he's going to push down into the Arabian Peninsula, and he's going to take Egypt and a little bit of the north coast of Africa. This is Sultan Selim I, is conquering all these territories. He's even pushing back the encroachment of the Safavid Empire, who has started to push into Syria. Now, Suleiman is going to be the guy that really takes this empire to another level. Suleiman the Magnificent is going to take over most of the rest of North Africa. He's going to make this connection between Egypt and Algiers, Tunis. Suleiman is also going to win 3 successive wars against the Safavid Empire. So as the Safavids are really rising, they're starting to grow and become really significant, Suleiman the Magnificent is going to knock them down a peg. He's going to move eastward, and he's going to take over what is most of today modern Iraq, capturing from the Safavids the city of Baghdad, which was really the heart of Islamic civilization for a really long time. Prior to Constantinople kind of being the center of the Ottoman Empire, Baghdad was one of the main cultural, government, economic centers of the empire. And Suleiman the Magnificent is going to succeed in taking that. But Islamic expansion does eventually halt. The Ottoman Empire was most successful at expanding almost entirely successful at expanding until the failed siege of Vienna in 1683. This is a battle against the Ottoman Empire against the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire also gets some support from other European Christian allies who start to realize that if the Ottomans are able to defeat the Holy Roman Empire, then they will really be unstoppable. So the Siege of Vienna winds up being one of these watershed moments in history. About 100,000 European soldiers rushed to Vienna to either defend the city directly or to attack the Ottomans who are besieging it. They're going to go up against an army that is roughly 200,000. But this Ottoman Empire is overstretched. Their supplies are limited. It is not easy for them to bring additional weapons, manpower, and food supplies to this army. And as the Europeans keep up this pressure on the besieging army, the Ottomans finally do have to retreat. That will mark the furthest the Ottoman Empire ever expands into Europe. And it will, in many ways, kind of mark the beginning of the slow decline of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is going to hang on until the 1920s, but it's going to be a slowly weakening power from this point forward. That's all for today. A little bit longer than usual. I appreciate you sticking with me. And remember, if you only learned one thing today, you learned about Dracula.